Follow me, tell me if you feel me. I think niggas is trying to kill me. Picturing pistols, spitting hollow points till they drill me. Keeping it real, and even if I do conceal my criminal thoughts, preoccupied with keeping still. See niggas is false, sitting in court, turn snitches. They used to be real, but now they petrified bitches. I'm trying to be strong. They sending armies out to bomb me. Listen to Ron, the only DJ that can calm me, constantly on. My firepower keep me warm. I'm trapping the storm, and fuck the world till I'm gone. Bitches be born, word is born, you'll get torn. I'm busting on Giuliani, rubbing my niggas wrong. And in this song, before I leave, picture me, I'm spitting that pump, bitches and hustling to be free. Watch me set it, niggas don't want it, you can get it, bet it. Make these jealous niggas mad, I said it. This thug like nigga, we don't cater to you hoes. Fuck with me, have 100 motherfuckers at your door with both bullets strong. The only DJ that can calm me, constantly on. My firepower keep me warm, we listen to Ron. The only DJ that can calm me, constantly on. My firepower keep me warm, we listen to Ron. The only DJ that can calm me, constantly on. My firepower keep me warm, we listen to Ron.
Jehovah said I'm born from the pearly gates, fuck 'em. I didn't wanna go to heaven anyway, but my mama got me on my knees with my hands gripped, talking about some praise the Lord shit. Hail Mary, fuck her, I never knew her. I probably screw her and dump her body in the sewer. Our Father, my pot stuck up dirt spots, big black and mean with the fifth by the gabardine. What you expected from his next to kin? I'm loco, bro, but ain't no Mexican. I got nines in the bedroom, blocks in the kitchen. A shotty by the shower if you wanna shoot me while I'm shitting. The lesson from the Smith & Wesson is depressing. Niggas keep stressing the same motherfucking question. How many shots does it take to make my heart stop and my body start shaking?
The only DJ that can calm me, constantly on. My firepower keep me warm, we listen to Ron. The only DJ that can calm me, constantly on. My firepower keep me warm, we listen to Ron. The only DJ that can calm me, constantly on. My firepower keep me warm, we listen to Ron. The only DJ that can calm me, constantly on. My firepower keep me warm, we listen to Ron.
Y'all okay? How y'all doing? Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. That's right, it is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Rumors are true. Thanks for watching. Guess what time it is? Your season is over video. This is the only Sunday afternoon college football weekly recap video that actually matters. That's right. That's a scientific fact. It's been proven by scientists like myself and a couple of others. Scientists. I'm a doctor too. Scientist and a doctor. But an amazing week of college football in week 10. We had some of it all yesterday. Highly ranked matchups. We had two top 5 teams going at it. We had another game involving 2 ranked teams that was sort of an elimination game for ACC championship game deal. We had some upsets. Tater man. We had some upsets. We had some close calls. We literally had it all. Had some great games, some great performances. But of course, we're not here to talk about all that. There's plenty of places where you can find that. We're here to point and laugh at this pile of shit that's stuck to the wall over here. That's right. Welcome to the Your Season is Over video, week 10 edition. And we've got an amazing cast of characters today. Headlined, I guess, by Penn State. Or familiar favorite, Florida State. Clemson, hadn't seen you since week 1. Good to see you back on here, buddy. Boy, y'all stunk it up yesterday against the Birds with teeth. Yeah, you did. Iowa State falls from the ranks of the unbeaten, joining Penn State with that distinction, as did our good buddies, the Pitt Panthers. Now, Texas A&M, although not undefeated, were undefeated in SEC play. Not anymore. Shout out South Carolina on that. Kansas State probably eliminated from everything. Big 12 title and playoffs and the whole deal. Michigan continues to circle the drain. Anyway, before we get on to the pile of poop over there on the wall, we do have to address a couple of helmet situations. And we're going to start with South Carolina. I believe this is the longest amount of time any helmet has ever spent turned upside down. The South Carolina helmet, of course. A South Carolina fan a while back said, Lou, we keep giving up all of these sacks. Turn the South Carolina helmet upside down until we give up less than 3 sacks in a game. And we've been patiently waiting on you, South Carolina man. Patiently waiting while you lost heartbreaking game after heartbreaking game to the likes of LSU and Alabama. But yesterday you finally did it. Not only did you complete a game without any sacks yesterday, which of course, is a big deal because it turns your helmet upside down. In fact, that's the biggest accomplishment you had yesterday, was getting the helmet turned right side up. You also beat Texas A&M. And that, look, I'm not taking anything away from that win. That was a great game. South Carolina blew them out. We're going to laugh at Texas A&M in a minute. But winning or losing a college football game pales in comparison in terms of importance and relevance compared to having your helmet upside down or not on the Uncle Lou helmet wall. So congratulations to South Carolina for getting off the schneid there. Unfortunately, we had to turn this one over and probably should have done it a while ago. I was waiting on somebody to say something about Carson Beck and the interception in the Georgia helmet. But Carson Beck, otherwise known as the human turnover machine, threw another 3 interceptions yesterday. That's 3 straight games with 3 interceptions. How is that even possible? Is that true? Florida, Texas, we played before that. I don't know. Anyway, we'll talk a lot about that at a different portion of the video. But the Georgia helmet is upside down until Carson Beck goes a game without throwing an interception. And it's got to be a conference game, okay? It's got to be a conference game. They got Ole Miss, then Tennessee. Then I believe they play an elementary school, and then they play Georgia Tech. Not throwing an interception against whatever elementary school Georgia plays in a couple of weeks ain't going to get it done, bud. You're going to have to do it against actual competition, which appears to be next to impossible for you. More on that later. More on the Texas A&M South Carolina game later, but I did want to address the helmet situations here right at the top. All right, guess what? Not one. See, that would be 1. That would be 2. That would be 3. And that would be 4. 4 pages of copious notes brought to you today by yours truly, Uncle Lou. Let's start at the beginning here. It's time to start pointing and laughing. Week 10, your season is over. Which one of you deadbeats shit to bed yesterday? I'm just going to go in order here on the wall. So we'll start with Penn State. I mean, this was not good. Now, if you're a Penn State homer, or maybe you're constantly like a glass half full type of person, you go, well, you know, it was a great game and we only lost by 7 and our playoff hopes are still alive. Yeah, all of that is true. All that is true. But my God, year after year after year after year, it seems like you're saying the same thing after you play Ohio State. Oh, yeah, we lost. It was close. And maybe if this happens, that, we're still getting this and that and do that and the other. And Penn State got inside the 5 yesterday twice and didn't score either time. They scored 0 offensive touchdowns. Now, that's embarrassingly bad, especially when that's just been the problem for Penn State year after year after year. People have been at, where's the explosive players? Where's the wide receivers? Where's the downfield passing game? Where's the deep shot? What we're going to do? We're going to do Allen. You know, we're going to get these wide receivers from the portal. You come out here and say you can't score one damn touchdown against Ohio State. You know, I spend a lot of time defending Penn State and James Franklin. Not against the fact that they can't beat Ohio State or whatever, but sort of this Ohio State's the most overrated team every year. Well, no, they're not. Now, turns out right now, yeah, they were overrated because they were ranked ahead of Ohio State yesterday, and Ohio State beat them in Penn State's house. So, yes, right now, Penn State was a little bit overrated. But generally, they're picked to finish 3rd in the Big Ten. They finished 3rd in the Big Ten. And, you know, the trying to figure out the playoff scenarios, you know, if they go 11-1, what would their best win be? If they go 11-1, I mean, so I don't know. And I don't even want to get into that right now about what if this happens and that happens and they beat this team, but these other two teams lose. Well, I'm not even getting into the never-ending playoff scenarios. I believe Penn State's going to be a bubble team. I think they're going to be a bubble team. I really do. I think a lot of it depends on what happens with Ohio State the rest of the way. Ohio State and Indiana play in a couple of weeks. If Indiana waxes Ohio State and ends up playing Oregon in the Big Ten title game, you got to assume in that scenario, Indiana and Oregon would be in the playoff. If there was a third Big Ten team that got in, it would probably be Ohio State since they beat you. So you would be counting on 4 Big Ten teams getting in, and that's just impossible to know right now because you'd have to then know how many teams are getting in from every other conference. What happens in the Big 12? Do they get 1 or 2? What happens in the ACC? Do they get 1 or 2? What happens with Notre Dame? Do they get in? Do they not get in? All of that would go into factoring or determining whether or not the Big Ten got a 4th team in. And if so, would that be Penn State? But this is just another bad, just boring, bland. You know, you watch the game. They can't do anything. They can't get first downs. They struggle to run the ball. These stats are mind-numbing because the one thing that Penn State tends to have going for it is good lines of scrimmage, right? A good defense and a good running game. Well, I thought the defense played pretty well. I mean, they held Ohio State to 20. But the running game, I looked up the number. Oh no. I don't know if this is a good sign or a bad sign. If y'all remember last week, the Louisville helmet fell down. And we were trying to figure out, is that a bad sign that the Louisville helmet fell down during the video? Well, it turns out it wasn't a very bad sign, was it, Clemson? So maybe it's a good sign if a helmet falls down during the video. But you know what helmet that was? The BYU. The BYU. Anyway, I looked up these numbers at halftime yesterday, and I said, well, there's no way that's going to hold up over the course of the game. Well, it did. Penn State's rushing numbers. This is going to blow your mind. At least it did mine. They lost 20-13 to Ohio State. 0 offensive touchdowns, like I mentioned. Dew Aller didn't play terrible, but where he can't elevate this team. He doesn't have the ability to elevate a team. He reminds me. He's got if Drew Aller is going to win a national title, it's got to be on a team that's elite everywhere else. Period. He's not one of these players that can put a team on their back and drag them across the finish line. He's not terrible, but just listen to these numbers. 12 of 20 for 146 yards. That's not getting it done, bud. No interceptions, 1 touchdown. But here's what I really wanted to talk about, the rushing numbers. Okay, the tight end for Penn State, this ham hock, Warren, was their leading fucking rusher. They've got Nick Singleton. I'm drawing a blank on the other guy's name. They've got 2 high-level elite potential pro NFL talent type running backs, Nick Singleton, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the other guy's name. Why is the tight end the leading rusher? And it's not like he had 200 yards, he had 47. Guess who your next leading rusher was? Dew Aller. Have you ever seen Dew Aller run the ball? He looks about like Carson Beck. That's how bad he is at running the ball. He was your second leading rusher with 31 yards. Your tight end and quarterback combined had about 80 yards rushing. The entire rest of your team had 40 yards rushing. Your running backs and whatever else. That is mind-numbing from a Penn State team. That is unacceptable. The whole Ohio State is soft mantra that's been floating around the internet and the college football world for 2 or 3 years. That was not the case yesterday. Ohio State definitely wasn't soft yesterday against Penn State. You know what was soft? Penn State. You get down there inside the 1 yard line, 1st and goal, you run the ball at the middle 3 times, don't gain an inch. Not an inch against Ohio State. Penn State, you're soft. You're soft. 4th down, you try a stupid play. The play calling was bad. The execution was bad down there. That pass you called on 4th down. You were in there another time and didn't score. You kicked a couple of field goals and you had a pick 6. That was it for Penn State as far as scoring the ball. They had a field goal and a pick 6. A couple of field goals and a pick 6. And you lose to Ohio State again, 20-13. Here's Penn State's remaining schedule. Home against Washington, unranked. On the road at Purdue, they're a 1-win team. On the road at Minnesota, unranked. Home against Maryland, unranked. You don't play any more ranked teams. Will you win those 4 games? Yes, but this gets back to my point about will the Big Ten get 4 teams in? Because in my mind, that's the highest you should be considered in the Big Ten for now. Now, we do have to see what happens with the Indiana and Ohio State game. We do have to see what happens there. I guess it's possible Ohio State beats them by 40. And Indiana sitting there with 1 loss to Ohio State, and Penn State has 1 loss to Ohio State, and Penn State's loss is better, I guess. So they're the third, they would be the 3rd team from the Big Ten. It's also possible Indiana beats the fuck out of Ohio State. Now, I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying we don't know yet. You're betting on the fact you need bad for Ohio State to beat the hell out of Indiana. Bad. You need that to happen, Penn State. And it's just a shame that with the talent you have and the recruiting and everything, the schedule worked out great for you this year. It's just a shame that with all that going for you, here you are in the first week of November and you basically don't control your own destiny. Because you lost to Florida State, nobody lost to Florida State, man. Come on. Because you lost to Ohio State for the umpteenth time in a row. I think it's the 8th time in a row, but whatever. James Franklin runs off the field after the game. He's arguing with the fans. There's a fan hanging over the railing, yelling at James Franklin about the play calling. James, why did you stop and engage that guy? That's where you messed up. That's where you messed up. You can't stop and engage with some drunk, raging lunatic. And I don't know that he was drunk. But I'm just saying, you can't stop as the head coach running off the field and engage with somebody like that. There's no way for you to come out of that looking good, my guy. Basically all you asked him for his name is what's your name? You know my name. What's your name? You know, loudmouth. What's your name? You know my name. What's your name? What were you doing? Then you go into the post-game press conference, kind of a little pouty routine, like, there's a lot of things I want to say right now. But now's not the time, so I'm not going to say nothing. Okay. Kind of complaining about some calls. Look, there were some wild calls in that game. And I don't mean that to say that the referees screwed things up royally. I mean, yeah, they miss calls in every game. I'm not talking about that. But there was just weird calls. Some of them went Penn State's way. Some of them didn't. The Will Howard fumble out of the end zone. They overturned that in Penn State's favor. There was another play later that went Ohio State's way. So, I mean, look, anytime you lose a game by one possession, and 7 points is a one possession game, any game in the history of college football that's ever been lost by one possession, of course, there's some sort of call on the field or something that happened or a referee went one way instead of the other way that you can go, well, if that call would have went that way instead of the other way. But that's every game, James. So you can't come out in this and try to blame this one in particular on that, especially when, like I said, there were multiple sort of 50-50 calls that went your way. It was not one-sided. Ohio State did not get all the calls. That Will Howard fumble out of the back of the end zone very easily could have been called out of bounds at the half-yard line, and it would have been Ohio State's ball first and goal. There was really no discernible evidence that ball crossed over the top of the pylon. It looked like it. You can kind of, you can guess that it did based on the angles, but they could have easily given that to Ohio State, and they didn't. They let you have that one. So I don't want to hear nothing about the referees, especially when you 8 straight, same problems every time. Can't score. I mean, can't score at all. Just bad for Penn State. Y'all's season is over. Florida State again. Now you see why I just leave Florida State up here. Florida State got blown out by a head coach who's currently on his retirement tour. The only reason Mac Brown is still coaching is so he can take trips to all of these college towns and see if he can find a retirement home that'll take him here in 6 months. Because don't we all know he's done it in North Carolina? But why? They're not any good. That's why it's been a terrible year for North Carolina. Doesn't matter. They go down there and beat the soul out of Florida State 35-11. Florida State now 1-8. Unbelievable. North Carolina's only 5-4. FSU played 2 quarterbacks again. They were 8 of 18 for 159 yards. And what's bad is neither one of those 2 quarterbacks, of course, is the ukulele. He's out for the year, I'm assuming. So they had QB2 and QB3. They've been rotating QBs in constantly. What's bad is 8 of 18 for 159 yards. As bad as that is, that's better than the ukulele would have done. I don't know what y'all are doing. 42 rushing yards. What in the world? What are y'all doing, man? I've got some more coming up about Florida State here in a different section of the video, but Florida State plays on the road at Notre Dame next week. So, I mean, I'm not moving. That's what I'm leaving it here. It's not coming down. You're a 2-win team. You're going 2-10 if you're lucky. You're going 2-10 if you're lucky. They play like Charleston Southern or something in a couple of weeks. I might luck up and beat them. I don't know. Florida State, man, you had a goddamn joke. Their fans are fucking garbage too. Pitt, I called this one. Now, I got a lot of games wrong this weekend. Not gonna lie, and I'll point them out as we go through. Hell, I picked Penn State, so I was wrong about the Penn State Ohio State game. Everybody knew Florida State was losing, and I was right about the Pitt SMU game. SMU was favored by 7.5. I said take SMU later points. I've been buying on SMU since last season in terms of how they would do this year in the ACC. Why? ACC not that good. I don't know if that's breaking news to some of you that are watching or what, but ACC is not very good. In fact, it's I don't know. You want to debate the Big 12 versus ACC? Is there anybody in the ACC that can beat BYU? I don't know. Anyway, that's a different story for a different day. But SMU's done really well in the ACC this year. They hosted Pitt this weekend, and of course, Pitt was previously undefeated. And SMU beat the soul. I mean, this game was never close. SMU jumped on them early, and Pitt never had a chance. 48-25. SMU now 8-1. Their only loss is to BYU. And Pitt is 7-1. SMU's quarterback had a great game, 17 of 25, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Pitt, 450 yards? What? 450 total yards and lost. Dang. SMU had about the same. SMU had 161 rushing, 306 passing, so about 460. Pitt had 450. Didn't matter. SMU rolled you. Pitt, your season is over. Who have you played? Who has Pitt played? Well, they played SMU and they lost. That much I know. It's no fun to make fun of Pitt. There's not that many Pitt fans around, and they're not the ones that aren't very annoying. But they did make it a long way into the season without a loss, so they've earned a deserved spot here on the Your Season is Over wall. And who knows? We've seen a lot of weird shit in college football this year. If enough weird shit happens over the next 2 or 3 weeks, maybe Pitt somehow sneaks their way back into the conversation for the ACC championship game. But it doesn't look like that right now. They still have to play Clemson. And I know Clemson lost yesterday. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, Miami's undefeated. Pitt with 1 loss. SMU and Miami, 0 conference losses. Pitt and Clemson, 1 conference loss. Pitt and Clemson play each other. That will be an elimination game for sure. They might already both be eliminated because Miami is likely to run the table and so is SMU. But anyway, we'll get into some of that later when we do conference predictions towards the end of the video. Michigan, this won't take long. Michigan played 2 quarterbacks again, Orgy and Warren. This just in. Neither one of them are any good. I don't know. I'm assuming everybody already knew that. But Michigan lost 38-17 to Oregon. Oregon's now 9-0. Michigan 5-4. Michigan played 2 QBs. They gave up 176 rushing yards. That's the thing. Look, I don't know. Outside of making fun of Michigan because, I guess now that you don't have Connor Stallions, you can't win a game. Outside of that kind of needling, it's not much fun to make fun of Michigan anymore. They're bad. They know they're bad. Their fans know they're bad. The quarterbacks are terrible. They've got one of the worst offenses in the Power 5, not named Florida State. And even their defense, which was supposed to be what they were able to rely on this year, has let them down against every good team that they've played. That happened again against Oregon. They went up and down the field. Oregon did lose that wide receiver, Tez Johnson, so hope he's okay. He's one of their better players offensively. We're going to talk more about this in a second, too. But Michigan's remaining schedule on the road, keep in mind, they're 5-4. They got 5 wins. At Indiana. Home against Northwestern, and at Ohio State. Well, y'all better beat Northwestern. You're not going to go from winning the Natty to not making a bowl game, are you? Don't worry, Michigan. You're not the only sort of traditional power that is struggling to get bowl eligible. While Vandy just got its 6th win. I got a whole segment on that coming up, too. Don't worry. Florida, you got shit beat out of you again. What is this, 4th year in a row? Dang. Georgia's done beat you 4th year in a row. Shout out to all the seniors on the team at Georgia who are going to graduate having never lost to Florida. 4 straight for the Dogs over Florida. They've won 7 of the last 8. Kirby Smart is now, 7-2? How many times they played Florida? It's 2016, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I think it's 9. Kirby 7-2 against the Gators. Lost to him his first year. Lost to him in the COVID year. Other than that, absolutely owned Florida. 34-20. Florida falls to 4-4. Georgia 7-1. Florida's remaining schedule on the road at Texas. Home against LSU. What the fuck? Home against Ole Miss. Didn't they score 70 yesterday? What else is this? Oh, shit. On the road at Florida State. Oh boy. The loser, whoever loses that game, the coach's house might get burned down. Wow. Dang, Florida. Y'all are bad. Y'all are real bad. Is this going to be Florida's 4th losing season in a row? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, it sure is. Billy Napier's had a losing season every single year he's been there. And whatever deadbeat they had before him, Dan Mullen, had a losing season his last year. So 4 straight. This will be Florida's 4th straight losing season. Unbelievable. 34-20. 10 of those points that Florida scored were gifted to them, courtesy of Carson Beck, who is an absolute trash can with an arm, which is a little different than some quarterbacks we've jumped on in the past. There's been several trash cans with legs that we've jumped on in the past. Carson's a trash can with an arm. He's got an arm. In fact, he's got an NFL arm, but he doesn't know how to use it. It's like, it's like somebody with a gun, but they don't know how to load it. I don't do you no good, bud. And he doesn't know what he's doing. Now, I don't know. He was obviously way better last year than he is this year. And there's a million different possibilities, I guess, of why maybe that is. I don't know what it is. I don't think no one knows. No one can get inside of his head or be at the practices and all that and see like what actually is going on. But what it looks like to me, and I think I mentioned this after the Texas game, you hear about golfers who get the yips, like a world-class golfer. Could be a great golfer, could be a top 10 golfer in the world or whatever. And for some reason or another, he walks up to the tee box and he hits a slice or a hook or whatever he does, and he can't stop doing it all of a sudden. It's just, and then, the more he thinks about it and the more he tries to fix it, the worse off he gets. And then his mind gets so crowded with what he's thinking. Don't slice it. Don't slice it. As he's lining up, don't slice it. 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 Slice. And and they call it the yips. Carson's body language looks bad. He looks dejected and down, depressed. Like when he goes and sits on the sideline. Every time the camera shows a close up of him, he's got his head down and he's, all 79 of his teeth are just, he's nothing but teeth. And let's be weird. Let's be honest. He's a weird looking fella to start with. He does up the Batman eye black. He's sitting on the bench after the interceptions. No one's sitting next to him. The way he trots off the field, the way he just kind of carries himself, his eyes look glossed over. Like, I don't know. He doesn't look like he's in the right mental state to be playing quarterback. He just doesn't. I don't care whether you love Georgia, hate Georgia, love Carson, hate Carson, or you're indifferent about all of the above. Anybody that watched Carson Beck play last year and then watched him play this year, it's two totally different quarterbacks. And people say, "Oh, well, he doesn't have Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey." Stop with that. That's dumb. Yeah, of course he doesn't have that. But that's not the reason he's thrown, 11 interceptions in the last 5 games. The guy has thrown 3 interceptions in a game 3 times this year. 3! Bama, Texas, and Florida. Now think about whatever team you're a fan of. Try to think about any games you've ever won when your quarterback threw 3 interceptions. It probably ain't that many. It rarely happens. Georgia was extremely lucky on the road at Texas to come out of there with a win, considering Carson turned the ball over 3 times. Florida's a terrible team, so you're more likely to be able to overcome 3 interceptions against a terrible, fucking crappy, shitty-ass program and team like Florida with a deadbeat Mr. Potato Head looking Sunbelt Billy head coach, fucking a broke version of Sling Blade running the show over there. But still, it's unacceptable to throw this number of interceptions. This would be unacceptable for a true freshman. He's not a true freshman, folks. He is a 5th-year senior in his 2nd year of starting. He's started 22 games. He looks like he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I'm off the Carson Beck train. Now, I'm not off the train to the extent that I think he's going to be benched and Kirby's going to suddenly put Gunnar Stockton or Jaden Rashad in. I'm dumb, but I ain't stupid. That ain't happening. We all know Kirby's going to ride or die with Carson Beck for the rest of the year. And look, if he goes on the road next week to Ole Miss and plays good and doesn't turn the ball over, I'll be the first one to come on here and congratulate him and say, "Thank you. Amazing. That's great. This is unbelievable. I'm glad you didn't turn the ball over." And I'm willing to guarantee you, if he goes out to Ole Miss next week and doesn't turn the ball over, Georgia will win. They're better than Ole Miss. If he goes out there looking the same he has in these other big games, that's the thing. It's not like this is happening in some noon game against a group of 5 school where you say, well, he's just going through the motions because it's group of 5. No, this is happening in the biggest games of the year. Bama, 3 interceptions, a fumble, and he took a stupid safety in the end zone. That's really 5 turnovers by Carson Beck against Bama. On the road at Texas, 3 interceptions. Yesterday against Florida, 3 interceptions. He's got more interceptions against SEC teams this year than he does touchdown passes against SEC teams this year. That is bad. That is really bad. We can point, there's a lot been made about Nico not living up to the hype. He doesn't turn the ball over like Carson does. DJ Lagway's got 5 interceptions this year as a sort of comparison. Now, I know he hasn't started all year, Mertz started and all that, but still, true freshman. He's got 5 interceptions this year. Carson's got 11, 12, whatever it is, another couple of fumbles, the safety. I count all that as turnovers. And again, 5th-year senior, 2nd-year starter, on everybody's list of first-round draft picks for next year's NFL draft, listed on everybody's list as one of the top returning quarterbacks in college football, and that has not been the case this year. He has been bad. He's been bad. Georgia, we've seen it. Georgia can win a lot of games despite Carson Beck playing bad. We've seen it. We saw it at Texas. Saw it yesterday at Florida. There's been other games he didn't play well. So we know Georgia can win when he plays bad. I'm going to tell you what Georgia can't do when Carson Beck plays bad and throws 2-3 interceptions a game. You start looking ahead to the playoffs in December and January, whoever wins that thing is going to have to beat about three top 10-ish teams in a row. Now, it depends which bracket. Maybe you play a group of 5, whatever. But I'm just, in general, you're going to have to beat 3, maybe 4, depending on where you're seated. I know that. I'm just stay with me. It's just the point that matters, not the specifics. You're going to have to beat about 3 top 10 teams in a row to win a national title. There is zero chance, that Georgia is doing that with a quarterback that's turning the ball over 2 and 3 times. That's not happening. Because, you know, he maybe in the first game, he turns the ball over twice, but you overcome it and win. Maybe in the second game, he doesn't turn the ball over at all. Oh, miracle, and you win. But you're going to get to that third game against somebody really good. He'll turn the ball over 3 times, you're going to lose. That's what's going to happen. I've been telling you, Georgia season is either going to win with a Carson Beck hoisting up a natty or Carson Beck throwing an interception. And after yesterday, I think it's leaning more towards Carson Beck throwing an interception. To me, it looks like that's how and why Georgia season will end. Whether that's on the road next week at Ole Miss, at home the following week against Tennessee, in a potential SEC championship game, in a playoff game, whatever it is, that it's trending that way. And it's disappointing for a guy who's supposed to be not just one of the best players on the team, but a veteran, one of the leaders of not just the offense, but the entire team, a captain, guy been there for 5 years. As far as we know, he's always done things the right way. A lot of Georgia's players have had their issues with the speeding and the racing and all that went on with that. As far as we know, Carson Beck has steered clear to that. He's been sort of the model student athlete. And last year he played great. And there was a lot of hope and a lot of pressure put on him for this year. But guess what? There's a lot of hope and a lot of pressure put on the quarterback of every single top 5 and top 10 team in the country. And if you can't handle that, then you're probably not going to be playing football much longer. It doesn't make me happy to say that. I was Carson Beck's biggest fan last year and all off season long. The guy has been terrible. Terrible. And again, to me, it goes beyond just throwing the interceptions. It's how they're happening. It's just terrible decision making. Like, he doesn't even see the fact that there's a defender standing right. Twice yesterday, he threw interceptions into triple coverage. Receivers that were triangled. It's unreal to watch. But worse than that to me is the body language, the moping around, the holding his head down, the glossed over look on his face. Like, I hate to use this as a morbid analogy, but honestly, I just can't think of a better way to describe it. You ever been to a funeral? This is horrible, I know, but if you've ever been to a funeral, especially the funeral of someone who died unexpectedly, right? There'll be a lot of people at that funeral with that look on their face that Carson Beck has on the sideline of football games. It's just the... shock, almost like an out-of-body experience. I don't know. It's like just detached from himself. It's weird. And, you got a lot of people that keep saying, well, if Georgia can just put together a complete game, or, if Carson can just get over the interceptions, and well, if the run game can do this, or if the defense and the offense can get on the same page, or if the quarterback and the wide receivers can fix some of their timing issues. It's not week 1 or 2. It's not September. We're headed into week fucking 11. This team that you've seen play for 11 weeks, that is the team. Okay? There's no magic potion that they're getting ready to sprinkle on Carson or whatever other player or whatever. Like, no, this is who they are. We're in week 11. We're not in week 2. And who they are is a really good team that is going to win way more games than they lose. Again, ask yourself, and I'm being serious, and this goes for even if you're a fan of a really good team, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Miami, whatever list of good teams. I'm asking those fans in particular you don't even have to type the answer if you want. I want you to just honestly think. Do you think your team could go into Austin, Texas, turn the ball over 3 times, and win by 2 touchdowns? Georgia couldn't do it again. That is one of the wildest outcomes of the year in college football. I know there's surprise upsets and, oh my God, I can't believe this team beat that team. I know that. But I mean, the fact that you got to remember, Texas had the number 1 ranked defense in the country. Quinn Ewers was on the Heisman list. Georgia goes in there, turns the ball over 3 times, and wins by 2 touchdowns. That wouldn't happen. If Georgia went in there tomorrow and turned the ball over 3 times, they'd lose. So that was just a weird sequence of events that went on in that game that led to a 2-touchdown victory for Georgia, despite the 3 turnovers. That is not repeatable. It's just not against quality competition. Look what happened to Bama. Turned the ball over 4 times against Bama. 3 interceptions, a fumble, and a safety. You lose by a touchdown. Okay, well, cut those interceptions in half. Get 2 turnovers instead of 4. Maybe you win. You cannot do that. You cannot do that. And unfortunately, back a month ago, yeah, you could say, I don't know, Carson's rusty. Maybe it's the chemistry issue with the wide receivers. He'll get it turned around with these interceptions. It ain't a month ago anymore. We're in November. We're going into week 11. He had a bye week. That Carson Beck you saw yesterday was Carson Beck after a fucking bye week. What, you think they didn't practice throwing and catching, timing or chemistry and all that? That's what he is right now. Will they beat Ole Miss? They might. They could probably commit a couple of turnovers against Ole Miss and win. Not 3 or 4, I don't think. The following week at home against Tennessee. Tennessee doesn't have a dynamic offense. Now, they can run the ball really good. You might be able to get away with a turnover or 2 at home against Tennessee. Maybe. That's a big maybe for Ole Miss, too. But moving forward past that, SEC championship games and playoffs, no. You can't just count on, well, yeah, we'll turn the ball over 2 or 3 times, but our defense will get us the ball back or hold the other team to a field goal. It's no big deal. It's a huge fucking deal. All right, have I shit on Georgia enough to make everybody happy? Let's move on. Florida, your season is over. Moral victory for Florida. Holy shit. I have never in my life seen a fan base cheer a loss like Florida's doing today for that loss they took to Georgia yesterday. It's unbelievable to me. I don't know what's happened to Florida. This is a program that won a bunch of SEC titles in the 90s, won a couple of natties, won another couple of natties under Urban Meyer in the late 2010s, and they've been absolute garbage since then, and I get that. But the fact that Florida is celebrating that they beat Kentucky 2 weeks ago and only lost to Georgia by 14 yesterday, and they're 4-4, and they're celebrating? What is wrong with y'all? There are no moral victories, especially for a team that's had 4 losing seasons in a row. Your coach has never had a winning season. What in the world is wrong with y'all? Oh, DJ Lagway wouldn't have got hurt. We'd have won the game. People get hurt, man. People get hurt. Georgia was down to its 4th string running back, who's a true freshman, Nate Frazier. RB2 yesterday was a fucking walk-on, Cash Jones. ETN went out in the first quarter, never came back. Georgia had offensive linemen go out in the first quarter. Smile Munden didn't play yesterday. It's November. We all have players that didn't play, Florida included. There was a series in the third quarter yesterday, 6 or 7 plays in a row, where somebody got hurt on every single play, 6 or 7 plays in a row. Some for Florida, some for Georgia. I've seen people complaining about the turf at that stadium there. I don't know if that's what it was. I don't know. But come on, man. People get hurt in every single game. Oh, you know what you do when somebody gets hurt? Put in a backup. Who's got better backups? Can you answer that question? I can. It's Georgia. You know why Georgia has better backups? Your recruiting class, Florida man, is currently ranked in the 50s for next year. I'll give you a wild guess where Georgia's ranked. Same place it always is, in the top 3. That's why you lost. You don't have the players that Georgia has, and you damn sure don't have the coaching staff. But yeah, because Lagway was 2 of 6 Come on, man. Come on, man. I hope he's okay. I don't have anything bad to say about Lagway. It's just the idiot Florida fans. I don't have anything bad to say about Lagway. I hope he's okay. Hamstring, I guess, is what it looked like. I don't know if he's done for the year or if that's something that he can potentially come back from in a week or two. I don't know, but I wish nothing but the best for him, in all seriousness. Texas A&M, man. Little unusual that everyone knows a blowout is coming. I mean, a upset is coming, and then it actually happens. Very unusual. It's happened a couple of times with Vandy this year, and that's become a pattern with Vandy this year. But generally, whenever everybody is picking something to be an upset, it usually doesn't happen. It happened yesterday. Texas A&M had that big win against LSU a couple of weeks ago at home, and apparently they spent all week celebrating instead of practicing because they showed up in Williams-Brice Stadium last night and got the absolute soul and will to live beat out of them. This game was humiliatingly bad for the Texas A&M man. 44-20. South Carolina just whooped them. Bad. Embarrassing. So Texas A&M falls to 7-2, but that is their first conference loss. More on that later. 5-3 for South Carolina. Texas A&M was shut out in the second half. Shut out. South Carolina did to Texas A&M what Texas A&M did to LSU the week before. Competitive game in the first half, completely dominated in the second half. Texas A&M did to LSU last week. South Carolina did that to them. This game was tied at 20. South Carolina goes on to win 44-20. This quarterback, Reed, for Texas A&M, 18 of 28 for 206 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Whoopity fucking do. And 16 carries for 46 yards. I spent all last week scratching my head trying to figure out why people were so enamored with this quarterback for Texas A&M going back to the LSU game. Yeah, he made some exciting plays with his legs and a surprise roll. Oh, surprise, I'm playing the second half. And clearly, Brian Kelly and all of his coaching ineptitude had done absolutely nothing to prepare his team for the idea of a running quarterback, which Connor Wegman is not. So when A&M made that switch last week, LSU had no answers. Well, everybody and their brother then knew that Reed was starting this week, and Carolina was obviously prepared. But here's the deal. Outside of running around a little bit 2 weeks ago against LSU, what did he do? He completed 2 fucking passes. I told y'all all week long, why is everybody hyping up this Reed guy? He completed 2 fucking passes against LSU. People are talking about giving him to Heisman. South Carolina harassed that man from start to finish yesterday. And I mentioned South Carolina didn't give up any sacks, and they didn't. But they got plenty of them. 3, I believe it was, yesterday. South Carolina had 3 sacks, I think. So, yeah, Reed, 18 of 28, 206 yards, a touchdown and an interception, 16 carries for 46 yards. Not impressed. Not impressed, Aggie, man, at all. South Carolina had 286 yards rushing. 286! I think that's more than Georgia has all year. 286 yards rushing. Gave up no sacks. South Carolina had 2 100-yard rushers yesterday. One of them was the quarterback. The other one was Rocket Sanders. They also had a 100-yard wide receiver. Here's what's up for Texas A&M at Auburn and home against Texas. I think they play an elementary school in there somewhere too. But in terms of SEC games, at Auburn, which you would think would be a win for A&M, we'll see. And then the one everybody's been kind of waiting on, that Thanksgiving weekend Saturday game, they host the Texas Longhorns, and that is going to be a massive game because as bad as this thing was yesterday for Texas A&M, and it was bad. If they win out, they're likely playing in the SEC championship game because you got to remember, they still only have 1 loss. Georgia and Tennessee have 1 loss. Texas and Texas A&M have 1 loss. Everybody else has got 2 or more. And Georgia and Tennessee play, and Texas A&M play. It looks like the winner of those games is headed to the SEC championship. That's what it looks like. Actually, I think LSU's just got 1 SEC loss too, but they host Bama this weekend. Could be an elimination game for either LSU or Bama, whatever. But you get the idea. It looks like that's where we're headed anyway. But Texas A&M just got beat down. Mike Elko's done a good job there this year. This is obviously a better season than Jimbo's had outside of the COVID year at Texas A&M. This is a better year than he ever had, really, Jimbo. So shout out to Mike Elko. He's got them heading in the right direction. But they ran into one yesterday and took an absolute beating. Iowa State Iowa State was undefeated. No one has spent more than 5 minutes all year talking about them on the internet, myself included. But they finally lost. They lost yesterday to Texas Tech 23-22. And this thing had a wild fucking ending where, like, you know, both teams scoring basically in the last minute and a half of the game. But Iowa State gets the last laugh, or Texas Tech gets the last laugh, defeating Iowa State, knocking them from the ranks of the unbeaten. 23-22. They're 7-1 now. Iowa State is. Texas Tech quietly sitting there at 6-3. So pretty good year for Texas Tech here. Each team had 2 turnovers. 2 turnovers. So you can't really blame it on that. This was honestly just a great back and forth game. And, you know, one team scored at the end with no time left. So the other team didn't have time to retake the lead. And that one team was Texas Tech. Iowa State could still play for the Big 12 title. They have to play at Kansas, home against Cincinnati, on the road at Utah, and home against Kansas State. Utah has fallen off the map. Kansas State lost yesterday. We'll talk about them too in a minute. Iowa State, BYU, Colorado. Holy shit. Oh my God. What are we going to do? Colorado might play for the Big 12 title game. And look, I know they're not any good. They haven't played any ranked teams, and only Nebraska's the best team they've played, and they got their ass beat. But it doesn't matter. If Colorado gets into the Big 12 title game, they're 1 win away from being in the fucking playoffs. I don't even. What do you want me to say? I don't even know what to say there. I know what to say about Clemson, though. My buddy Huffer Billy Slaw told me that Oob Doob was root, and I'm not sure if that's true. Is that still true, Slaw? Slaw. Hey, wake up. Slaw, is that true? Was Dooboobies rate, or Doobies was rate, Oob Doob was root? Clemson lost 33-21, and it wasn't that close. Louisville was the better team. They were better prepared. They were better coached. They appeared to have better players. They were better prepared. Their scheme was better. This wasn't a competitive game, folks. At Clemson, this was alarming to see. I'm not going to lie. This was alarming to see, and not a good sign. But Clemson goes down 33-21 to Louisville, and like I said, it wasn't even really that close. Louisville 6-3, Clemson 6-2. This was Clemson's first ACC loss, which is good. The problem is SMU, no ACC losses. Miami, no ACC losses. And SMU and Miami combined, between the two of them, don't play one single decent team the rest of the regular season. So they're likely to win out, which means Clemson is going to be on the outside looking in during ACC Championship Saturday, sitting there at 10-2, having lost to the 2 best teams they played, Georgia and Louisville. And on top of that, they still have to play South Carolina at the end of the year, which doesn't affect their ability to make the ACC Championship game. But a South Carolina team that has proven they're not afraid to play anybody, including you, Tater. Before you play them, you got to play at Virginia Tech and at Pitt. You're not going 8-4, are you? Now, that would just be crazy. That would just be crazy. There's no way you're going 8-4 because Oob Doob was root. Remember? Dabo was right. Oob Doob was root. Is that what you told me, Slaw? Oob Doob was root. I guess so. If 8-4 is Oob Doob was root, then I guess Oob Doob was root. Dummy. I'm not gonna lie. Most of the people watching might not even know who Slaw is, and that's fine. I could stand right here in this exact spot and not move and talk about Slaw for the next hour, and it would be entertaining as hell to me. But I better move things along. That's what I better do. Klubnik, 33 of 56. Boy, 56 passes. This guy threw 56 passes for 228 yards. He was 33 of 56 for 228 yards. You want to talk about dinking and dunking, nickeling your way down the field. Holy shit, 1 touchdown and no interceptions. Both teams, no turnovers. That's amazing. I don't even know what that says. You can't read my own shit. Clemson outgained Louisville. Clemson rushed for 222 yards. Moffa had 171 and 2 touchdowns. The onside kick deal. The onside kick deal. Clemson became the latest fan base to embarrass themselves by throwing trash on the field this week. So it's now 3 weeks in a row. Started by Texas 3 weeks ago when they got mad at the referees during the Georgia game. Picked up last week with Ohio State when they got mad at the referees during the Nebraska game. On to week 3 yesterday where Clemson fans got mad at an onside kick that they felt like the referees got wrong. There was a blocking penalty that wasn't a blocking penalty, and then they thought Clemson fell on the ball, but by the time they unpiled everybody, a Louisville man had the ball. And then they did a review, but they didn't really say what they were reviewing. And then when they announced the results of the review, all they said was the play on the field stands as called. They didn't explain anything, which of course is the biggest problem about referees and officiating, is that they don't feel like they owe you an explanation. You're beneath them. That's how referees and officiating people feel. They don't have to answer questions. They don't get reprimanded. They don't have to explain anything to you. It's a take it or leave it deal. If you don't like it, fuck you. That's their attitude. And Clemson man didn't like it, so they started throwing a bunch of trash on the field. But again, it didn't work. So far, Texas fans are the only ones to throw enough trash on the field to actually get a play overturned. Ohio State fans were unsuccessful in their attempt last week to do it, as were the Taters yesterday after they scored and had the onside kick that they got but didn't get because of the blocking penalty that didn't happen or whatever. They throw the trash on the field. Of course, they have to stop the game. Cheerleaders are running for their life out to the middle of the field because you get clocked in the head with half full water bottles. They finally get the field cleared up, right? It's going to be Louisville's ball around midfield or so because, you know, it was an onside kick situation. Louisville comes out first fucking play, 50-yard touchdown run. I couldn't help but laugh. And I had bet on Clemson to win and cover, so it wasn't like I went into that game wanting Clemson to lose or whatever. But because the fans acted like such idiots with the throwing trash on the field thing, it was fucking hilarious to me that the very next play after they got the field cleaned up and they lined the teams up, the very next play, Louisville nail in the coffin with a 50-yard touchdown run, basically untouched into the end zone from midfield. It was absolutely, it seemed poetic. I like it when fans get what they deserve. Like Florida State fans, for example, complete pieces of human feces all over the internet, mostly Twitter, all off season with the not stop crying and shit. And then, you know, they got a point to prove this year. Yeah, point proven. Point proven. Florida State had another 2 or 3 players that didn't play yesterday for reasons unknown, made up injuries. Sorry. Look, you got to live. What's the thing? You lay down with a dog, you get fleas. You know, you made your bed, you got to lie in it, that kind of thing. Told you last week when Florida State had a player out with a bruised palm, I said, look, Florida State has cultivated and encouraged an atmosphere of quitting based on what happened at the end of last season, right? If you don't like what you perceive has been done to you, if you don't like the way the season is headed, if you don't feel like you have a reason to play or anything to play for, don't play. Just quit. Last week, you had players that didn't play because they had a bruised palm. Yesterday, for Florida State, you had multiple players that didn't play for whatever reason. And look, do I know for sure or have any proof or anything like that those players actually aren't injured? No, of course I don't. No proof at all. Don't need any. I'm just going to assume that they're terrible. They're 1-7, 1-8, whatever it is. They're probably going to go 2-10. They're not making any type of postseason. Half the players on that team will be in the portal 5 weeks from today when it opens. They don't give a fuck about Florida State. They don't give a fuck about Mike Norvell. They don't give a fuck about the Florida State fans. That's actually me and the Florida State players have that in common. Neither one of us give a fuck about the Florida State fans. So you're going to have a lot of Florida State players that have weird injuries and illnesses over the next couple of weeks because You can just quit at Florida State. It's no big deal. They all told us it was no big deal last year. And so now they'll be lucky to field a team by the time Florida goes in there and beats them at the end of the year. I don't know why we got back on Florida State again. Clemson, your season is over. Oob doob was root. And you got blown out by, can I get a hashtag, Ubu was root in the comment section, please? Spell it however you want. Doesn't matter. Hashtag Ubu was root. Thank you. Kansas State lost again, and man, this makes me mad. Kansas State was my pick to win the Big 12, and even though they really haven't looked at all this year like a Big 12 winning team, because they were technically still alive to make the Big 12 championship game, I was going to ride them till the ship went down. Well, yesterday the ship went down. They lost. It's their second loss, which also their second conference loss. They got blown out by BYU earlier. They lost to a bad Houston team. Houston's now 4-5. Kansas State falls to 7-2. Kansas State most likely eliminated now from both the Big Ten championship game and the playoffs. Problem is that loss to BYU. So even if BYU loses 2 games, BYU would still own a tiebreaker over Kansas State. Plus, you've got multiple teams ahead of you that only have 1 loss. So it's just not looking good for Kansas State and my buddy Avery Johnson. And he didn't have a great game either. 23 of 39, 238 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Only ran the ball for 18 yards. Kansas State as a team only had 99 yards rushing. Houston, 220 total yards. So shout out to Kansas State defense. I mean, they held Houston to 220 yards and still lost. Kansas State, boy. Disappointed me. You let me down. There you go. That's the shit list for this week. Let's move on. Who looked good yesterday? Boise State. That's a lie. They didn't play yesterday. They played Friday, I think it was. Anyway, they looked good. 56-24 over San Diego State. Alstonian Gentworth, 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. His Heisman campaign remains full speed ahead. Oregon's the best team in the country. Oregon's the best team in the country. They'd win the national title if the playoffs started today. I don't care who they had to play. Oregon right now, I think, could beat Georgia, Ohio State, and Miami 3 weeks in a row, which is about what you have to do, basically, to win a natty. They look unstoppable. They don't have any bad weeks. They don't appear to have any weaknesses. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball. They've got great lines of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. They're fast and athletic at the linebacker position. They can cover. Dylan Gabriel, the running backs, they're well coached. You're going to have to catch Oregon on a bad day to beat them. They look really good, and they won again. Ohio State, good win yesterday over Penn State. I mean, let's be real. Penn State is still a good team. The hate for Penn State and James Franklin is a little weird. Penn State's a good team. Are they great? No, they're good. They're a top 15 team, though. Penn State, they're a top 15 team. They're a bubble playoff team. I told you. Ohio State beat them. All right. Ohio State still just got the 1 loss. It was a good win. Because there was a lot of pressure on Ohio State. Had Ohio State lost that game, their season was over. Because if they couldn't beat Penn State, that means they probably lose to Indiana. That'd be their 3rd loss. Now they can probably lose to Indiana and still make the play. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Good win for Ohio State. Miami offense. Good game. 53 points again. You do it in your sleep. Cam Ward, 400 yards, 5 touchdowns. Miami defense, bad. What are you doing? Quit giving up 100 points and 1,000,000 yards. But they won again. Tennessee, Dylan Sampson, good. Defense, good. Pass game, special teams, doo-doo. Tennessee, what has happened? Holy shit. The forward pass is like a foreign language in Knoxville. Nico can't throw the ball. When he does, the receivers drop it. Tennessee missed 14 field goals yesterday. I'm exaggerating, but they missed a bunch. Tennessee's got a really good defense and a dominant running back. And that's it. But they beat Kentucky by 10, 28-18. So that was a good win. South Carolina, but one of the best wins of the day, dominated Texas A&M. 200-yard rushers. They had a 100-yard receiver, allowed 0 sacks. They got 3 sacks of their own. Shut out Texas A&M in the second half. Just dominating by South Carolina. Shout out Shane Beamer. Shout out Shane Beamer. What else? Good question. Louisville, good win over to Tater. Indiana was down 10-0 yesterday. Final score, 47-10. They scored 47 unanswered points, blew out Michigan State. The quarterback is back. He played again yesterday. Rourke, 263 yards, 4 touchdowns. SMU remains unbeaten in the ACC, blew out Pitt at home. Ole Miss Welcome back, Ole Miss offense. We've missed you. September was a long time ago. We told you you're allowed to score points and get yards against SEC teams. I don't know why you took the month of October off in terms of doing that, but welcome back. You blew out the Woo Pig dummies. Jackson Dart, 515 yards and 6 touchdowns. Wow. He was also their leading rusher. That's concerning to Uncle Lou. Where's all the Ole Miss idiots? I'm going to find them all this week. Believe that. Believe that, because Georgia plays Ole Miss this week. But where's all the Ole Miss idiots that told me they didn't need Quinshon Judkins because they had this guy Ulysses or whatever the fuck his name is? This guy's on a goddamn milk carton, dummy. He had like 5 carries for 11 yards yesterday. He's like the 4th best running back you have. The other 3 aren't very good either. But y'all spent all offseason telling me this idiot obviously don't know nothing about Ole Miss, talking about we're going to miss Quinshon Judkins. He must not know about Ulysses. He must not know about Ulysses. No, nobody knows about him because he's fucking terrible. Congratulations for beating Arkansas, though. In 6 more days, Georgia's coming out there and beat the absolute fuck out of you. And every day this week between now and then, I'm beating the fuck out of you. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing. I would tell you to type in the comments, but half of you can't read or write. Fucking idiots. The education system in Mississippi doesn't even exist. You know how there's some people that run around talking about how we need to eliminate the Department of Education? You might want to study Mississippi. They eliminated education 75 years ago. How's that worked out? Not very well. Not very well. Fuck you, Ole Miss. Georgia's going to beat the fuck out of you. And I'm going to spend the next 7 days making you my bitch. Just for fun. Army won again. Good win. Vandy bowl eligible. Holy shit, they beat Auburn 17-7. Auburn's down. Auburn's so bad, they even put them on a wall. That's how bad Auburn is. But Diego Poverty beats Auburn 17-7. That's it. He's beat Auburn 2 years in a row, hadn't he? Because he was at New Mexico or whatever it was last year that beat him. Best teams I saw play this weekend. Oregon, South Carolina, Indiana. Are those the 3 best teams in the country? No, that's not the point of that. I watch a lot of football. Those are the 3 best teams I saw play yesterday. They all looked really, really good. Oregon, South Carolina, and Indiana. Who want to look bad? Miami's defense, and of course, Georgia. It's kind of a half good, half bad, I guess. It's Carson Beck. Carson Beck's terrible. He's got to stop turning the ball over. He's horrible. But the defense played well. Look, the reality is Georgia was a 14.5-point favorite. They turned the ball over 3 times and won by 14. They won by as many points as they were supposed to win by. I guess continue your moral victory parade, Florida, man. I don't know what else to tell you. All right, on to a couple of other things here. These are just like pointless notes I wrote down. Oklahoma State is 3-6. So disappointing. 0-6 in the Big 12. I don't know if I realized that. I knew they were bad. I knew they were disappointing. I've been ragging on them constantly. They had all these returning 6th-year offensive linemen and Ollie Gordon at running back, who was the leading rusher last year, and they've just been terrible this year. So it's not like I have just ignored them. I've noticed how bad they are. I don't think I realized they're 0-6 in the Big 12. Just an absolute shame. I want all of you right now. The team that you're a fan of, I want you to tell me in the comments down below what team you're a fan of and in what year they were as bad as Florida State is this year. You might have to get on the Google machine, but I want to know. So don't just type a year. Type what the team that you're a fan of and tell me a year where your team was as bad as this year's version of Florida State. I think this will be interesting. If you can let me know in the comments after. You don't have to type it in the live if you want to go look it up after. Purdue is 1-7. So if you're a Purdue fan, you would type 2024. Shout out to Michael Hogg. They're 0-5 in the Big Ten. Southern Cal's 4-5, 2-5 in the Big Ten. I want you to, okay, Vandy became bowl eligible yesterday. I got to set this down for a second. Vandy became bowl eligible yesterday, right? Guess who's not bowl eligible? Southern Cal, Michigan, Florida State, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Florida. But Vandy is. And you're thinking, well, they'll get bowl eligible. Will they? Will they? Southern Cal's got 4 wins. Here's their remaining schedule. Home against Nebraska, on the road at UCLA, home against Notre Dame. They're definitely not beating Notre Dame. They would have to beat Nebraska and UCLA to get bowl eligible. Probably not happening. Michigan, they're sitting at 5 wins. They just got to win 1 more game. At Indiana, that's a loss. At Ohio State, loss. But they do get Northwestern at home. Can Michigan beat Northwestern to become bowl eligible? And get that would make them 6-6 because they're not beating Indiana or Ohio State. Can they beat Northwestern? Don't know. Florida State, well, there's nothing they can do. There's not enough games left for them to get bowl eligible. They play at Notre Dame, home against Florida, and sandwiched in between there, they play Charleston Southern. They're going to win 1 more game. They're going to be 2-10. Down bad. Oklahoma's got 5 wins. All they got to do is get 1 more win. Surely they can do that. Surely they can do that. Wooden wagon wheeled motherfuckers. Oh, shit. I just looked at their schedule. Maybe they can't do that. At Missouri, home against Bama, on the road at LSU. Do you miss the Big 12 yet, Oklahoma, man? Oklahoma's going 5-7. Maybe they can beat Missouri and get to 6-6, but like Michigan, that would be their ceiling. They've got 2 guaranteed losses. They're not beating Bama or LSU. They might go 5-7 if they can't beat Missouri. Nebraska, they're sitting at 5 wins. They can get bowl eligible, can't they? You want to talk about just an absolute letdown if Nebraska, after the start Nebraska had this year and the streak that they're on of not making a bowl game, if they somehow blow this, they're at 5 wins. These are their 3 remaining games. At Southern Cal, 50-50. Home against Wisconsin, 50-50. At Iowa, probably going to lose that one. They've got to beat Southern Cal or Wisconsin. And Dylan Raiola got hurt this past week. A back injury. I don't know how serious it is. Obviously, like any injury, we hope it's not too serious, but who knows? They might not make a bowl again. Florida, 4 wins, but a bunch of moral victories. A huge one this past weekend. At Texas, loss. Home against LSU, loss. Home against Ole Miss, loss. On the road at FSU, they could win that one. They're not making a bowl game. The most wins they can get to is 5. God dang. This is going to be Florida's 4th losing season in a row. Their 3rd straight under Billy Napier. And they couldn't be happier. Why? Because they beat Kentucky and lost to Georgia in back-to-back weeks, and they're happy about it. I don't understand it either. Their recruiting class is currently ranked in the 50s, and they somehow now think that Billy Napier is the answer. They're fucking retarded. So I want to know, Vandy's bowl eligible. A lot of these teams are blue bloods, and they're not even bowl eligible. Southern Cal, Michigan, Florida State, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Florida. That's 6 teams. How many of those 6 teams are making a bowl game? None? Vandy is making a bowl game, and those teams aren't. That's just funny to me, so I wrote it down. Vandy's already at 6 wins. They play Mississippi State. That should be a win. No, sorry. They play South Carolina. I was looking at the wrong thing. They play South Carolina. That'll be a good game. They play at LSU. They'll probably lose that. And then they play Tennessee in the last week of the season. And I'm here to tell you, Vandy could absolutely ruin some of the biggest hopes and dreams Tennessee fans have had in 20 years by beating Tennessee in the last week of the season. Now, Tennessee's got to play Georgia before that. So Tennessee could be knocked out of the SEC title game before that. But it's pretty well established by most people that if Tennessee goes 10-2, they're going to get in the playoffs. So that means they could lose to Georgia in a couple of weeks. And as long as they win their other remaining games, which is Mississippi State and Vandy, they play UTEP, but come on, it's UTEP. So Tennessee is Mississippi State, at UGA, and at Vandy. Let's say they lose to Georgia. That would be their 2nd loss. If they were to lose to Vandy, the last game of the regular season, and finish 9-3, no playoffs. No playoffs. I'm not predicting that they will lose to Vandy, but I just want you to think about the humorous possibilities that could arise and what it would mean to Vandy in one of the best seasons that they've had in a long time to, in the last game of the regular season, while they're already bowl eligible, knock off Tennessee, thus preventing them from making the 12-team playoff. It's possible. It's possible. Twould be hilarious. Twould be hilarious. I got one more page. We're not done. Don't go anywhere. Got one more page. Going to run through this quick maybe. Heisman hasn't changed. Cam Ward, 400 yards and 5 touchdowns this weekend. Albert Jennings, running back, Boise State, 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dylan Gabriel, 294 yards and a touchdown, 23 yards rushing and another touchdown on the ground. Travis Hunter was on a bye week. Those are my 4 Heisman finalists. I think those are the 4 that should be invited to New York. The Juice Poot special today, you already know what he's talking about tonight. Florida. What? Hey, Florida. Shout out Billy Napier. He's going to tell you he was right about how Florida was headed in the right direction because in the last 2 weeks, they beat Kentucky and lost to Georgia by 14. He's going to eat that shit up. He's going to make you feel real good tonight, Florida fans. Penn State, he'll have a lot to say about that. Of course, he has some kind of weird infatuation with Penn State because they let him come sit there in the summertime and do interviews for an hour. So he is in love with them now, too. Same reason he's in love with Florida, by the way. They lost this weekend, but Juice Poot's going to tell you you're making the playoffs at 11-1, so tune in for that. Clemson, ACC playoffs, last game against South Carolina. Juice Poot will talk about all that tonight, make the Clemson man feel better. Texas A&M versus Texas. He's going to talk about that game tonight, I have a feeling. And Florida State. He's not going to say anything about Florida State. Radio silence from Juice Poot on Florida State. The weird bag list. Number 1, Miami. No surprise. Flip-flopped 2 and 3. Why? Tennessee won. Notre Dame didn't play. It's that simple. I still think the top 3 teams on my weird back list, which is Notre Dame, Tennessee, and Miami, Tennessee, Notre Dame, 1, 2, and 3. I still think all 3 of them have a chance to make the playoffs, thus potentially getting off of this list. Florida is 4th in the weird back rankings. We'll see you next year, Florida. You'll be right back on here. Conference championship game scenarios. Here's my picks. For the SEC, LSU and Texas. I've changed my mind. Right now, I don't think it's hard for me to pick Georgia right now. They've got to play at Ole Miss, and they've got to host Tennessee. At Ole Miss, home against Tennessee. They got to win them both if they want to get to the SEC championship game. Could they? Yeah, they could. Of course they could. Carson Beck with the turnover scares me. So right now, I'm picking LSU and Texas to play for the SEC championship game. That would mean LSU beats Bama this coming weekend and wins out. And Texas, of course, wins out, beating Texas A&M the last weekend of the year. I told you I'm changing these every week based on what happens the week before. So Texas A&M lost. For now, I'm taking them out. Georgia with the interceptions, even though they won, it's a tough schedule. I'm taking them out. Maybe I have them back in next week if they beat Ole Miss. I don't know. We'll see. But if you make me pick right now, I'd take LSU and Texas in the SEC championship game. ACC championship game hasn't changed. SMU and Miami. I've been on that one for a few weeks. I still think that's what we're going to get. Big Ten, I have changed. I'm no longer on the Ohio State versus Oregon rematch train for the Big Ten championship game. Put me down for Indiana versus Oregon Big Ten title game. If I had to pick the Indiana-Ohio State game right now, I'd take Indiana to get the win on the road. Big 12, BYU and Iowa State. And that brings me to Notre Dame, Boise State, and Army. I know Notre Dame's Power 5 and Army and Boise State aren't. I get it. Either Army or Boise State's making the playoffs in the Power 5. Army, however, has an opportunity to knock out 2 of the 3. The Army's in a unique situation here. They don't play Boise State, but they do play Notre Dame. If they beat Notre Dame, obviously Notre Dame's out of the playoffs at 10-2 with losses to Northern Illinois and Army and no opportunity for a conference title because they're pussies and chicken shit and won't join a conference. So that would eliminate Notre Dame if Army beats them. Well, if Army beats Notre Dame and then becomes the highest ranked group of 5 team, that would eliminate Boise State. So Army's got a chance to solidify almost their spot in the playoffs if they can beat Notre Dame, because that would move them ahead of Boise State and obviously would knock Notre Dame out of the way. It's an interesting situation to keep an eye on there with that. Is that it? I believe that it is. Was there anything else? No. All right, that's it. I appreciate y'all watching. Your season is over. Week 10 officially in the books. On to week 11. Great games next week. Georgia at Ole Miss, Bama and LSU. Great games in the Big Ten, ACC, Coast to Coast. Great games all next week. We'll talk about it all this week. But hit the thumbs up if you hadn't already. Subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching the Your Season is Over video. I'll talk to you again soon. Have a good morning.